All right, we are live. Hello, everyone who's tuning in today. I am Liz Beecroft, and I'm here today with Elise Swopes. If you don't know who Elise is by now, you should. She's amazing, but I'm going to read her bio so you can all get to know a little bit more about Elise. So, Elise Swopes is a Chicago bred, Brooklyn based photographer, graphic designer, videographer, and public speaker. When she first joined Instagram in 2011, she couldn't have imagined that she'd one day be featured on billboards, in commercials, and on mood boards at agencies across the globe. She just knew that the phone in her hand held an incredible power, one that would allow her to inspire others while showcasing her unique vision. Since then, the self taught creative has used her business savvy to spin influencer marketing on Instagram into a full fledged career. So, welcome, Elise. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. Honestly, anytime I told people I was going to be talking with you, they told me they loved you,
Oh,
and ever since we've met through the internet, and now we've met finally face to face, it proves to be right. You're a dope person. So I really appreciate you giving me the space to chat with you.
of course. And, thank you for your time and for being here. I know you're a very busy lady. But also, an exciting note is that you're now in New York. So, that's even cooler because we're pretty close, neighborhood wise as well.
Right.
So the topic of
Absolutely.
today's Mentl.Sesh episode, or the title, is called "Healing at Hand with Swopes." So, like I mentioned,
Mhm.
Elise has essentially formed her whole career off of her iPhone, and the internet in general. She's worked with so many brands. We'll get into a lot more of those details later. But what I want to start out by saying, one, I'm saying this now because I might forget to say this. If anyone has any questions as you're tuning in, please feel free to ask those in the comments because we can drag them on screen and answer those live. But two, another thing that I want to get into more is your story. I did watch your TED Talk. I did do my research on Elise, but for those who don't know, I want to hear more about where you're from, where you grew up, what those kinds of things, and basically your journey of what brought you to being Swopes.
Of course. It's a pretty interesting one because a lot of people think I was born and raised in Chicago, but I was actually born in St. Paul, Minnesota, and then I moved to the suburbs of Chicago, and I think when I was like maybe 3 or 4, I believe, with my parents. And I was actually homeschooled until third grade. So I was homeschooled by my dad. He's a teacher. And my mom would go to work. I would stay at the house with my little brother and my dad, and we'd learn. And eventually I went to public school. When I went into public school, I was a little bit of a troublemaker, not gonna lie, the same kind of way that I was growing up a little bit, where I really never liked authority very much. I really was kind of taught by my dad to kind of learn my own way, and to not kind of wait on anybody to just show me what I wanted. And so from there, I think that's kind of what I've figured out so far why I was problematic. But then I didn't realize that too much. But so just growing up, kind of, I think in a household with a black dad with a white mom, and they're young. My mom had me when she was 19. My dad was 20 something, and to see the opposites of how America works, and the politics and the social just construct of everything, to kind of to see in my own eyes of even a mixed person, I think was pretty traumatic as a kid. I think my parents ended up divorcing. My dad was homeless. I mean, there was my mom, I mean, was growing up, and eventually we moved out of my mom's house, and lived with my dad in a different suburb. And I started to go, um, I was in high school, and I would start to skip class. And I think that was still that, like, kind of like, I want to do my own thing,
Mm.
mentality. And just to backtrack, I guess that's more of my social life, but my creative life started when I was 10 years old. My dad, like I said, was homeless. He barely had a lot, but what he could give me was this Mac computer with, that blue back, that blue plastic back, and it had Photoshop on it, Illustrator downloaded on it. It had all these programs where I was just kind of like enabled and inspired to persevere, through this love for digital design. I think I do owe it to my dad, to both my parents, truly, for pushing me in that way to see how much I did love design. But I had my first website when I was 11 years old. I designed it myself. It had like tutorials on it for people to learn how to design their own websites, had graphics, free graphics for people to use for their websites. And of course, when MySpace came around, that was it was easy for me because at the time everyone could do the HTML, so that's dope. But like for some reason, I was able to sell the layouts. I was making a ton of money in class in school, and I remember specifically. I think I talk about it in my TED talk how I sold, MySpace layouts for McDonald's cheeseburgers at lunch, which was, I think, it sounds silly, but I think that's where that entrepreneurial kind of, I don't know, just hustler mentality that I had from then. And going back to like, the trouble that I was having in high school, I barely graduated high school. And I remember the last day that I had class, I actually moved to Chicago, and I started going to college at Columbia, in art school, and I actually wanted to be a VJ on TRL, which is pretty interesting. I went for broadcast journalism, but TRL canceled that year, so I was like, all right, well, maybe we'll just go back to our first love, graphic design. So I actually ended up not liking it at all. That same kind of reoccurring, characteristic where I just haven't really enjoyed a lot of, discipline or people telling me what to do. So I dropped out for 4 years out of college. And that 4 years was pretty tough. I for some reason felt in my gut that I just needed to figure out life like not so much on the streets, but just in real life, like on the streets, I wanted to exist. I didn't feel like being in a classroom was like enough for me. And it was hard to explain to my parents. It was hard to explain to everybody else, seeing everyone around me graduating college, being successful, having that college experience while I'm, a freshman dropout, just trying to like survive and figure stuff out. In the midst of that survival, being extremely broke. I think my rent was like $200. I couldn't even pay it every month, and I had to like beg my mom for cash. And I had this broken iPhone 4. I remember the screen was like destroyed, and it was like I bought it off of like Craigslist. It was like a cracked phone or something, and I had like Instagram, this new app on my phone. No one ever heard about it. No, anytime I'd ask someone to like follow me or check it out, they'd be like, I don't know what Instagram was. What's Instagram? So I was just posting on Instagram consistently, just I mean, I don't really know what the purpose was. I just felt like it was a creative outlet for me when I had no control, no money, no nothing for myself. I had no camera, no laptop, no sense of direction almost. And it seems like Instagram was almost something I could put my time and effort into. And then, time went on, and here we are today doing what I do with it. It's unbelievable how much things can change just by, dedicating yourself and staying consistent with something. I mean, Instagram is huge, and it's not what I expected, but I'm trying to take advantage of every opportunity that I have in the most authentic way. And that's kind of what I've always tried to do, is just be myself, bring my imagination, and try to help people along the way too, honestly.
No, I love that, and that's something we talked about even before this started. Just how true you are to yourself, and I think all that actually translates into your work and what you create, and like you talked about and like you discussed in your TED talk is being shaped by the internet, and I think
Mm-hmm.
as a therapist, like me going to therapist mode right now is like seeing how you know that was your comfort zone. That was what you,
Mm-hmm.
really truly felt the most, out of whatever that feeling was.
Absolutely.
And so it makes complete sense to me, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so amazing and just powerful how you took control of it, and here we are today, you know.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
doing amazing things, you're working with just amazing brands, and you're leaving an
Thanks.
impact on the world in a way that is meaningful. And I think that's something, you know, hopefully we can talk about a little bit later, is just the world of social media and how using your platform or being an influencer or personality
Mm-hmm.
on social media kind of has that impact on people, and really does influence people for the good or for the bad. So one thing
Absolutely.
I love about your work is how you really transform just cityscapes into things that like
Mm-hmm.
most people's brains can't even like create in their mind. Like it blows my mind, like the things that you're seeing. And you know, I guess for me is like, how have your experiences kind of shaped the way that you create today, or how do you think your inner self is being expressed through your work?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I think every time I am asked it, I think I am reminded and like almost thankful that I'm asked, because then I get to analyze it, because I wouldn't have known any other way. But I think what I've realized over time is that my work is about empty space. And I think I shoot a lot of like scenery where I could do something else to, because I'm looking for what's possible. I guess I don't know what that stems from. I think it may be because I grew up in Illinois where it's flat and there's no mountains, there's no waterfalls, there's no giraffes walking around, you know. Just using that contrast to living in this city, you know, that's, or in the suburb even, you know, growing up in this very dull, unimaginable kind of space, and just kind of wanting to dream a little bit bigger than what is there. And that's why initially, I even as a creator, I don't know, I've always kind of been afraid to like use stock images or to use other people's images to get my idea across, because it almost felt like maybe I was, I don't know, faking my imagination. But I think what I realize now is that I never wanted to limit myself the same way I have always been with everything else, is that if it's not possible, I'm going to make it possible some way, somehow. And if I can see it, then it's definitely possible. So I think my art is just a reminder of just the unlimited possibilities of what your imagination can do, whether it be in regular real life situations or your art. I mean, there's no box that we need to put ourselves in. And essentially, when, especially coming up, you know, a lot of people would ask me, you gonna shoot with a real camera, or you know, or kind of be kind of negative about my edits. They're like, oh, well, I like the before picture better. You kind of destroyed it with your edits and stuff. And I'm like, but that's you, and that's great. You know, we can be different, and that's like the powerful part about it, is you can open your mind and see the difference between everybody and everything, is that we're not the same. And that's my space, that's my lane, you know. So I don't know, it's definitely a process, to grow with yourself on the internet in a live way in front of thousands of people,
Yeah.
especially someone like me who's gone through a lot of personal, you know, challenges when it comes to drugs, when it comes to friendships, when it comes to just life in general. You know, I mean, it's not easy to be someone with a lot of eyes on you when you're in your 20s trying to figure out what's going on. But if anything, I'm grateful for it all, because it's brought me to a place where now I get to share that experience with people, to say, you know, I have been in these places and I completely understand what you're saying. And I do pride myself on my empathy. You know, I pride myself on my way to see the side from everybody's angle. And I think that's necessary to grow yourself. You know, it's necessary just be patient with yourself, because what the things that you see in other people is almost the things that you judge in yourself. And I've talked about it on my podcast too. I have a podcast called Swopes So Dope, where I was talking about this thing called a judgment detox, where I have to sometimes kind of sit with like the people that I'm like angry with, the people that I'm judging, the people that I'm like really bothered by sometimes, and think about why I'm bothered by them. And it's for a reason, you know. I mean, either it's from a childhood trauma or some kind of something that like there's a reason why for some things. And so sometimes I just to cleanse my soul, to get my spirit back, so that because I think anger is a serious disease, you know. I think it's one of the biggest killers of people in general. And so the last thing I want is to be angry or judgmental or just, I don't know, negative in that way. I think negativity is normal, you know, in many ways, but I think I like to be aware. So when it comes to my life, when it comes to my art, when it comes to friendships and stuff these days, it's I guess a lot of, and it's not so much intentional either. I think it's just what my heart feels, you know. It's my heart is so genuine and so big. My boyfriend said to me the other day, because I just took on a project with I got a pen pal in prison. He's in Blythe, California. His name is Damian Hodges, and he is a author. And been doing an interview with him on my podcast about, you know, prison abolishment and just trying to educate myself and knowing someone inside the system. And he's like, my boyfriend was like, you know, you've got the biggest heart of any person I know. You have 17 mentees, you have a pen pal in prison, you want more, you want to save his life, you want to hire his lawyer, you want to do all these things, and where, like, you know, and you still have time for yourself. Like, your heart is like the, you know, the Grinch, like when his heart is like growing, and it's almost gonna come out of his chest. When he said that to me, I was like, I feel like seen by that. I feel like that's always been me, and it's sometimes even to a fault, where there have been a ton of situations where I have had friendships where I've had to say the right thing, and and everyone around me for some reason doesn't want to listen. And that's almost sometimes made me bitter, but it's also made me better, because you just gotta, sometimes you gotta separate yourself from the masses to kind of see what's really going on. So just because something's popping, just because it's cool, does not mean it's right.
100%. And
so, I mean, it's a process.
No, I completely agree. And I think, you know, I would argue too that, not even argue, but I would just say that in order to really feel empathy, or not even just feel empathy, but in order to have a really strong mindset or empathetic mentality, I guess you can call it, you'd have to be a resilient person. Empathy and resilience go hand in hand, because I truly think that people who are resilient have experienced a lot of ups and downs throughout their life. You know, mental ups and downs, physical ups and downs, whatever you want to call it. And to feel empathy, you have to really be able to put yourself in other people's shoes and really envision what that might feel like, you know, to experience something on that level. So that's why I believe that. But
exactly.
something else too that you do that I'm a big fan of is Swopes notes. Every morning, I actually screenshotted yours from today. I'm going to read it. But you said it's important to accept that not every day will be your greatest. One day you may feel on top of the world, and the next you may feel down on your luck. But one thing's for sure, the best you can give is always enough. Don't overthink, just keep going. You know, and I think that's such a powerful statement. It's true. You know, we always have those ups and downs. And I think you've touched on all of that, and you've talked a little bit about the things you've been through in your life. But something else that I want to make note of for people who are watching is, you know, how much of a mental health advocate you are, and how true of a mental health advocate you are. She doesn't do it for a trend. She's not doing it because it's a thing right now for social media. It's something that, you know, she lives and breathes and genuinely cares about. And that's where not only the empathy comes in, the resilience comes in, but just the kindness of her heart, like her boyfriend and I also agree with. But so what does mental health mean to you, Elise? Like, how would you define it? Because I think everyone has their own definition of that, and that's cool. That's fine.
Right. Mental health to me is the awareness and the mindfulness of how your mind works. And I think there's a lot to learn. I mean, for me, a lot of the last 4 years have been me unlearning a lot. Unlearning a lot of habits that were just survivalist for the longest time. And they were not healthy habits. And I think that stemmed from kind of blaming everybody else for my problems and not taking kind of accountability sometimes. And I think sometimes I would like, you know, I don't know. I think there was a lot of honesty I had to have with myself instead of kind of saying, okay, maybe I have depression, or maybe I'm anxious, or maybe, you know, I should take pills to cover these things up or to solve them. It was more so like I needed to actually look at myself, analyze what my decisions were, analyze what I was actually doing day to day in my habits, and was it adding up to who I wanted to be? And I don't think any of it was. And I think that's where my drug addiction came into play. That's where a lot of that, you know, a lot of my problems stemmed, is that I was covering up. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, you know, and I think that that's where mental health was necessary in my case, where I needed to really look at why I was doing what I was doing, why my brain was working the way I was, why was I reacting so much instead of responding, you know. And there was so much anger in me, there was so much anxiety in my stomach. I could feel it some days. I mean, I don't get like that anymore, because I feel like there's meditation in a play, there's action in a play, there's honesty in a play. I mean, there's a lot of accountability on my part that has solved a lot of my mental illness. Not to say it's going to be ever perfect, absolutely not. But it's brought me to a place where I'm trying to study more, I'm trying to educate myself more, so that I'm not just trying to take a magic pill to solve what's happening in me. And that's the difference. I mean, the thing about mental health is there's so many variables. My mental health is not going to be the same as anybody else's. And that is something that I try to advocate as well, is that, you know, it's not going to be the same road for everybody else, but we can all, I think, relate to a lot of my Swopes notes, because I write those and I started those with the intention to change myself, with the intention to kind of like just really hammer it into my mind about who I needed to be to become who I wanted to be. And I mean, that took waking up at 5 in the morning and watching the sunrise. I did a sunrise picture for 3 years straight. RIP to my apartment. I miss it so much in Chicago, but my sunrises were everything to me. You know, just seeing the way that the world resets every day, how beautiful the world is, how just, I don't know, it's just such a special time for me, that 5 a.m. to like 8 a.m. It's everything. So I'd meditate. I'd start reading books on like just different thoughts and different ideas about mental health and relationships and listening and thinking and existing. And then I started working out a lot, and then I started writing those notes. And those notes at first were just written all the time. I would just write them out of inspiration. I really sit there and be like, okay, what do I need to hear today? If I was my own friend, what would I tell myself? And that's really what it was, and still is till this day. And I think, you know, sometimes I think I get a little worried when I do post them, because people can take them the wrong way sometimes, and I need people to understand that, like, not everything is about everyone all the time. And I think that that's a struggle that's also very prevalent, is that, you know, there's a lot of, like, on purpose offensive, like, read the room type of language with me sometimes. I'm like, but I need this. I am still me, and I also am me, the person who looks at my social media the most. I'm, if anything, I mean, we can all be honest, I read through my tweets more than anybody. I'm reading through my Instagram. I'm making sure all my stuff is straight and good and the way I want it, you know. And, like, if I'm looking back at stuff that's still reiterating, you know, the negativity of the world, or this or that, or my complaints or whatever, it's like I'm really just, like, trying to make my day about that. And if I can have any control over that by writing something that can remind me, you know, every time I look back at my stuff, something that can help me, that can change me, that I have seen proof in these last 4 years for a fact that it's done, then I'm gonna keep doing it, you know. And people can say read the room all day, but, like, you got to read my room. I've been in the same room for months.
Yeah.
So
No, I hear you, and I think that's the tricky part with social media, especially discussing mental health online. And no matter what platform you have, but I can imagine with a platform your size, you have a lot more eyes on you and a lot more people with opinions coming in your DMs saying whatever they want to say. But you know, I think that's part of it too, is, and the biggest takeaway is just, you know, not everyone has the same, no one's mental health is the same. You know, we all have our own unique experiences in life, and that shapes who we are, and that shapes how we perceive the world around us, and, you know, and how those thoughts that we have kind of form based on our experiences, and that's how our feelings are kind of around because of those thoughts. And essentially cognitive behavioral therapy in a nutshell. But it's important to remember that, because what you resonates with you, and I would argue that most of the time what we post online coming from a deeper place within ourselves, because it resonates with us, because we're the ones in control of what we post. And the same goes for me. Exactly. When I post on Mentl, you know, it's all probably coming from some stuff even that's not even in my forefront of my mind at the time, but it's probably stuff that I'm sorting through. But I think the big goal, you know, if you have, say, 10 people that see it, and you can help at least 6, you know, or half or more, or any of them, even 2 people, you know, like, that's better than saying nothing.
I agree. Absolutely. Thank you.
And it's so important to
it's everything.
Use our platforms in a way that uplifts and inspires and motivates and helps people heal, because, you know, therapy isn't for everyone, and everyone has their own ways of practicing self-care. You know, for one of my ways is basketball. I love to go out and just hoop, and that's how I kind of take care of my mental health. But for some, you know, people go to their role models and their idols, and, you know, they look to what those people say, and they respect that. But being someone who gives a lot and does a lot of good in this world, what do you do for yourself? How do you practice self-care? Set those boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, I think the boundaries part is difficult. I think it's because of who my dad is. I think it's because I'm so comfortable seeing everything, talking about everything. There's no, like, I don't know, nothing is weird to me unless it's actually weird. But, like, I think weirder people I relate to more sometimes, like a little bit of the outcasts, and I think some people are surprised by that, because they think maybe, I don't know, I'd be safer or something, but I'm definitely not at all. I'm for the people who don't get the credit enough, you know, and I see that, and I almost forgot the question because I'm going on a tangent, but
just what your self-care is. How do you set boundaries and practice self-care?
Yeah, I I have a mentee program where I have 45-minute calls with 17, I think it's 18 people, 18 different people a month. And all of the people are completely different. We all talk about very different things. And it's I think that I was just warned a little bit by other people. They're like, well, you're not gonna have time. You're not gonna have time to talk to people. You're not gonna have time to mentor people. You're gonna have, what are you gonna get out of it? And for me, I think it was I needed to talk to people. I needed to do something to help people more than post a tutorial. Posting, I mean, that's where my podcast comes from is me feeling like I have so much to say but not enough space to say it, and I felt like I could help more people, and I think that my heart fills up by that.
Mm-hmm.
It fills up by listening to others. It fills up by helping people. It fills up by writing my quotes. When someone sends me a note or a message saying that, I've done something to change their life, that to me is bigger than any check, any logo that I can put on my website, any vacation. Because I think that's like what we're here on this earth to do. And I've never been one to hold back any secrets. I mean, I could like cry right now. I get emotional. I'd be crying about everything.
Same.
But
Okay.
I yeah, I think I don't think we're here to be someone who's supposed to be protecting what we know. No one's gonna ever take our place. No one's gonna take something from us. I mean, that fear, I think, is what holds so many people back from what their next level up could be. And I think what I've noticed every time I grow, every time my life gets better, is when I help someone else and I do something that's selfless.
Mm-hmm.
And that is self-care to me at this point. It's making sure that I'm still paying attention to other people and not just myself. My true self-care has been, that waking up at 5 a.m. meditation, reading, writing. That stuff is like absolutely necessary for me. But a part of that, what I was missing for a lot of years too, was that connection with people, was that position to say a little bit more than what I've said in an Instagram caption, or something.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And it's, after hearing you talk about all this too, it's interesting how having a platform on social media, you're constantly feeling you have to be connected because of its work. It's not just for fun. And at times it can be an outlet, but it's work. And at the same time, we have access to so many people, or so many people think they have access to us, yet we're so disconnected at the same regard of not, having a lot of meaningful interactions at times on there. The likes and the comments are great and they're supportive.
Yes.
But I think there's a deeper level we could go, and that might be through the DM or whatever.
Absolutely.
But sometimes we need to take that step aside and do something for us, which is even part of why I started this series, because I think having conversations like this is super helpful for my mental health as well. Just, I leave these episodes every other week feeling super inspired and super positive because we actually had a really meaningful conversation. And I don't think that in today's day and age, we always get that when we're online. I think, a lot of social media is also how we use social media, and we're in control of that, following accounts that inspire us, or we making sure that we're aware and keeping it in the back of our minds that it can be a highlight reel. And, not everyone's life is as glamorous as it seems online. There are a lot of impacts, both positive and negative, on our mental health when it comes to social. But with it being your career, one of my other questions too was, how do you find it affecting your mental health? I know you've, in some of your jobs and some of your collaborations with brands and partnerships, you've worked both behind the camera and in front of the camera. So is there a difference in that for you? Do you prefer one over the other? Like, do you have to kind of switch modes in your brain when you're going back and forth?
Yeah, I think, that the reason why I'm behind and in front of the camera is because I love control over my stuff. I am the photographer, I'm the videographer, I'm the editor, I conceptualize everything. I am honestly a one-person team on a lot of these projects, and I don't think people realize that sometimes. And it's because I like to, be on my own time. I like to test things. I like to try things out. I like to do stuff in my home, which is the best. I mean, the blessing of, of who I am, considering, everything that's going on with stay-at-home orders and everything in COVID. I can shoot my own projects in my office, and in that. I think it's the same kind of mentality through both, just trying to make sure I can get something done, following through an idea. And I mean, even lately, I'm still trying to figure out sometimes like what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to accomplish with some of my projects. What's the real message I'm trying to get across, and what is my purpose. Not just saying yes because, it can be a challenge, but really, I don't know, just trying to make sure that that the company's decent, that there's good energy around the people, and I'm not just some kind of token person that they want to use. I mean, I've been in plenty of spaces in this industry where I am the only Black woman, at an event, and that to me has been definitely an issue. And I've spoken up in the past about certain things, but I feel like now is the time for me to really be in a space and be like, yo, there's no Black people here, like saying it out loud in people's faces. You know what I'm saying? Instead of sending an email later or something. It's a different, I think I'm just really a little bit more intentional these days about what I'm trying to do and where it'll take me the next point. I think the old me was more so like not really aware of the future at all and not really concerned with it. But for me now, I'm not so much concerned, but just excited for the unknown. And I want to make sure that what I'm bringing to the present is my best self, so that next, future step is going to be dope, and that I don't need to question or to feel that, little ping of regret, that I didn't, trust my gut. So yeah, it's I think the internet is tough, because it can kind of steer you in a different direction for your art. I mean, even when it comes to like my Swopes giraffe, God bless it, I love my Swopes giraffe, but it was not intentional. I was not going to put a giraffe in a lot of my art at first. It was like lots of different animals. I had elephants and wolves and monkeys and stuff like that. But for some reason, I think the giraffe just looks so good in a lot of the compositions. This brick or steel kind of buildings. They're really tall and gray and dark, and you've got this tall, bright creature, that contrasts it in a frame so unexpected and so random. And people have really gravitated towards it because, if I don't post a giraffe image, they'll comment and be like, where's the giraffe? Why haven't you posted it in a while? And so that's something that has like become something because of everybody else. And, I'm grateful for that. And so I do try to make sure that I do still like listen to people. I still take in information, and I'm still, giving my audience what they want from me and what they love from me without trying to feel like I'm holding myself back, because artists can feel like that, sometimes, where it feels like what people expect of us is who we should be forever, when artists are ever changing. Humans in general are ever changing, and we shouldn't be put in a box because that's what makes everybody else comfortable. I think that's where me starting to shoot more video of myself came into play. I mean, people were really uncomfortable with it at first. They're like, who is this girl? I don't know this person on my screen, because there were years where I never posted a picture of myself on my Instagram. And people would be like, you're a sellout, for hashtag ad type of stuff. But, I think it was me just always listening to my gut. I couldn't just stay where people wanted me to. And I'm glad that I've trusted myself along the way, even through the ups and the downs, to just learn, through it all.
100%. And I think too, as far as your own mental sanity goes, is just making sure that you're being the version that you want to be, of yourself, and not the version that other people expect to see. And I think that's something that a lot of people on social media feel, especially people, who work with different brands, because you see, what some of the precedents and standards are and what brands kind of navigate toward, and it might be a brand you want to work with. Feel like, in order for me to fit into this category or get this opportunity, I need to do that, and that might not be true to who I am.
Right.
And it's a constant battle, and it's so challenging because it's sometimes you need these opportunities for to live, it's how you pay your bills, it's how you pay your rent, and it's a constant struggle. But I think too, even just now with everything happening in the world, I hope, and my genuine hopes are that we leave this whole coronavirus situation a better version of ourselves. And I hope not only as individuals, but as companies, as the greater good, we learn how to focus on more meaningful conversations and more impactful conversations, rather than, what's selling or what's trendy right now. We can incorporate meaningful conversations within trends as well. And I think that even adds value. So yeah, it's
absolutely
the constant battle, and as great as social media is, it's also scary at times. But I think that's the cool thing about it, is we have the power to set those boundaries ourselves, and we, with a lot of practice and a lot of trial and error, we learn what works for us and what doesn't work for us. Yeah, it's a constant battle for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I know we were talking a little bit. You moved to New York right in the middle of quarantine happening.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have been talking to just about motivation, and seeing a lot online of people posting, "Oh, be productive during this time," or "Do this, do that." And, what I've been saying is do what is best for you. If you want to sit all day and watch Netflix and not learn a new skill, don't do it. That's what you need, and that's okay.
Yes.
But I know a big thing for, a lot of people has just been motivation. People wanting to do things, but they just can't find the motivation because maybe they're experiencing some symptoms of depression or whatever it may be. Do you ever kind of get into those creative ruts? Have you faced that during quarantine or just in general? And how do you get out of those ruts?
Yeah. I feel those ruts. I listen to them and I engage with them and I feel them. I just live with them. I try not to force myself to do anything. I know a lot of people know I like to organize my content calendar. I'm always obsessed with my productivity planner. Everything's timed out. Everything in my life is timed out and very organized. But if it comes to me not feeling like I want to do something when it comes up, I'm not going to do it. I'm just being real. I'm at a point where I really just want to trust my gut on stuff and not try to do things that aren't in my spirit. And I also, one of my friends, Kenna Klosterman, we just had a talk recently. She's from Creative Live, this platform where teachers are and everything. But she gave me this quote. It says, what was it? Oh, don't should on yourself. Don't should on yourself. It sounds like don't shit on yourself, but the concept of should. I should have did this. I should have done that. I should have. It doesn't really help that much at all. I think every day is a brand new day to begin again, and there's never, it's never too late for absolutely anything. So I I try to stay patient. But I think patience is not just sitting around and waiting. You know, I think when it comes to motivation, I don't like to rely too much on inspiration because I think that leaves room for me waiting for something to happen. When I go out of my way to learn something new, when I go out of my way to adjust something that didn't work before, when I go out of my way to really do something that will benefit me, I think that's when a lot of like good happens, and a lot of that's where dang, I like forgot my point because it was really good and I was like getting there and I was like, ooh, this is gonna be a good point. But this is why I spoke about a weed too, so I might forget what I'm saying a lot.
That's okay.
So what was the question again?
Just this motivation and like how do you get out of the creative?
Oh yes, motivation. Yes, that was the point. Okay, so motivation to me is about momentum. Okay. And I talk about it in a way where it's very scientific because I love science and I really enjoy science. It's the concept of energy. You know, when you have a lot of energy and you're staying consistent with that motion, and even if that motion isn't, you know, it doesn't need to be the best thing every day, you know, where, and even like me learning 3D design, you know, some days I'm not going to make the best 3D design that I'm going to post to my Instagram, but that's fine because I'm keeping that energy, that ball of energy, you know, it's going. And I think that's where my motivation, my momentum sticks and stays, is that I'm not waiting for something to remind me of what I'm trying to do. I try to make sure that I'm always checking in with my purpose, my mission, my intention of who I'm trying to become. Because and especially with the internet and social media, you can get really aimless at times because you see other people being successful at certain things and you say, well, maybe I should do that. Well, maybe it'll work for me. But is that thing that you're doing consistently going to take you to the place that you actually see yourself? Is that for you? Is it, you know, are you building the foundation for who you want to be? And I think there was a lot that I was doing for a long time that just didn't need to fit in, you know? I don't know. So I think that's now where my motivation comes into play, is my motivation now and my inspiration and that all of that comes from kind of my imperfections almost, and the unknown almost. It's not that it's my imperfections before would bother me, but now they excite me because it gives me something to do every single day. If I woke up perfect tomorrow, I would be so upset because there's nothing else I can do.
Yeah.
And I think that's so exciting every day that we get to humble ourselves, that we get to envision a purpose and a mission and a drive and break that down to actual tangible goals to do and be who we want. And so when I finally locked into it, I was like, oh dang, I feel like I found a secret or something to life. Like it's a click that happens in your head a little bit, where it's like one day you feel like you're not aware, and then the next you're like super, you see everything differently. Like your conversations are different, your relationships are different, the way that you respond to stuff is different. You're not the same person anymore. And that's where my motivation comes from, and my growth is, you know, looking back at a photo that I didn't edit correctly and being like, okay, maybe I'm gonna try it again next time and edit it differently. We'll go outside, shoot something, and try that idea again, you know. It's not about inventing something all the time. Sometimes you can reinvent something about yourself. So yeah, I'm motivated every day just by the sheer force that I am just not perfect whatsoever.
Yeah. No, and I think that's so true with, you know, everyone. I think we were talking a little bit too about this before, of just the idea of right now how mental health is super trendy, and you know, people see some people having success with, you know, discussing mental health online or whatever it may be, and kind of getting into that trend of, you know, talking about mental health but not being fully equipped to do so, you know, and not be prepared if someone were to message you and have question or need some serious support or resources. So I think, in that regard,
Right.
it's important that we really focus on what our end goal is and getting to that end goal. And if we're in those ruts, like working on enhancing some of the skills we already have, or, really focusing on the goals that make up the larger picture and how we can really focus on those rather than just falling into, what's a trend right now or what's going to keep me afloat. Because those short little stints don't really create longevity. And it's unfortunate.
Exactly.
And it kind of gets you off track, and it's harder then to get back on track once you're off.
Yes.
We have a question. Okay.
Nice.
So it's from Kidox. He asks, especially during this time, how do you make new meaningful connections, and what are some ways to maintain those friendships or relationships?
That's a great question. We were just talking about this before the call, I think, Liz. But I think that's the hardest part about living in New York, is that it doesn't feel quite the same. There's no events, there's no parties, there's no things where I can go and meet different people and kind of show out and have cool outfits and stuff. The fun part about going out. I'm much more of a people person than I am, on the internet. I think people, when they meet me, they see my energy is a lot higher and a lot different. And so I think there's a little bit of a struggle for me, but I think that's where, me doing, a lot of these chats, I try to make sure I'm doing lives and making sure that I'm keeping up with my podcast so that people can hear my voice. They can hear my mood, my inflection, my actual emotions through what I'm saying. And that also comes into play with my Swopes notes that I record every day for my Instagram. I write my notes, but I also try to record myself saying them, and I think even that has really pushed it into my brain as well, where I'm really kind of affirming it. But I think that is one of the ways that I try to stay connected with people. Having my mentor calls, still trying to create programming for online courses for people, for different nonprofits and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of room to, or at least for me, to just help people more than kind of do things that are more social. I think more of my energy is really focused on getting information out and really assisting everybody else with their journeys, more so than, hey, let's watch a movie together on Netflix through this platform, which is fun. But I think I'm also still such an introvert that which surprises people a little bit, is I think my energy sometimes gets really depleted when it's when I have to perform or hang out with people sometimes, and I get really exhausted. But if I can be just really authentic in the way where I'm passionate and empathetic and helping, I think that's where my energy really comes out, and I feel alive. So that's the best way right now for me, is doing things like this and being able to connect with people and chat as much as possible.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, going back to the point of just how we use social media as well, if you're trying to really form some meaningful friendships and relationships with people, use social media to be social. You don't have to use it the same way everyone's using it now. I've met so many friends just from DMing them and being like, hey, I really like this about you. We have this similar interest. If you ever want to get together or, make plans in some way, shape, or form, or volunteer together if you like to give back, or, do something like that,
Right.
I think can push that a little bit further than just the superficial conversations that we tend to have.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's really good. That's a good point.
Thanks for the question, Kidox.
All right, so I want to get into the rapid fire round, but I have one more question.
Ooh.
Health goes.
Okay.
Do you have any resources or books or anything that you really enjoy, nonprofits that you particularly like, for anyone who might be interested in some resources?
So it's a great question. I think for me, it depends on the situation. There's so many things going on, and so many variables and so many different situations that I think I have to consider when saying something like that. But I think the biggest thing for me is just making sure that people aren't thinking that where they're at right now is forever.
Mhm.
And that's my biggest thing is there's so much to be done, and there's so much to say, so much to learn. Google is our friend to an extent. Don't get too carried away. Don't be searching your medical issues. You've got a cold or something, and now you think you're dying. But I mean, you use it in the right way where, if you're having an issue, you can find a book, you can find a resource, you can find something that can bring you outside of where your mind is kind of, confusing you a little bit. And sometimes we got to just take ourselves outside of ourselves. So for me, and I apologize if this is a trigger warning to anyone, but being someone who's been suicidal in the past, I think that thinking about who I was at that moment and realizing, or maybe not realizing, but thinking that that was enough and that was the end, really wasn't. And the fact that I've been able to, go on vacation with Will and Jada Pinkett Smith and
Yeah.
go have dinner with Kanye West and work with over 100 different brands, I mean, that in itself is enough reminder to me that life can shift when you want something enough for yourself, when you put yourself in a position to ask the questions that you need to ask. And you have to humble yourself in that. And it's hard. And I think that's where a lot of my shame came into play, whereas that I was afraid to ask for help. But I think when I finally did, I started to realize that there was so much help out there. So every day is a new beginning, and that's my greatest advice, at least, and that the internet can indeed be your friend.
Amazing. I love that. All right, now time for some fun, silly questions. Oh, um, well, this is more this kind of
Yay.
the theme of our whole conversation.
Okay.
What's the most meaningful project you can say that you've worked on, or in your opinion, what do you think is most meaningful?
Um, I think the most meaningful. Oh man, I mean, I guess the most meaningful ones, of course, are when people are involved, when there are other people, like children, especially, um, where you see how affected they are by your presence, just because you have a lot of followers, and you have to be very aware of how you speak, of how you enable them, and how you inspire them. I think those are the most meaningful to me because I realize how important they are and how important words are and how important we are as people in general. And there's a nonprofit, a boys and girls club in Chicago called Off the Street Club that I've been working with for almost, I think, maybe 5 years now. And I've created original programming with them for mobile photography in the last few years. But before that, I was just a volunteer. But so they put me on as the creative director, which is been the coolest damn thing, because then I get to come from, that girl who was a college dropout, who had a broken iPhone 4, who had nothing to her name. I get to tell that story to people, to kids who have a broken iPhone 4, who have a broken, situation, to tell them that real honest truth. And that's meaningful to me. That's everything to me. That's like what it's about at the end of the day.
That's really cool. I don't know. I work full time for. We'll talk about this off the once we go end
Yeah.
live. But if you ever want to do any work in New York, we'll talk about that.
Yay.
What's one thing you're looking forward to doing in New York now that you're newly moved here, or any specific places you're really excited to go to once you're able to, once we're able.
I'm excited about the fashion. I just want to up my clothes, my style. I'm excited. I don't know why, but ever since I got here, I feel like I can wear whatever I want. Like there's no judgment. You can really be yourself, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. It really feels like that. And it kind of sucks because I feel like a lot of the stores I wanted to shop in are like closed. They're still boarded up and stuff. So, I think that's one of the coolest things is just having fun with that and just because I've always really enjoyed the fashion here, and I love how unique everybody is. Everybody just rocks what they want, and I feel like there's a lot more stuff to look at and shop at and stuff. So Chicago is cool, but it's not a fashion city. I'm gonna keep it real. I love them, but there's a lot of work we had to do there. So I think that was one of the most exciting thing to me is that for sure.
Yeah, that is true. I think
Yeah,
I've taken that for granted. I think after a couple of years,
I bet.
What is one place you've always wanted to go to but have not yet been?
Oof, Niagara Falls. I use it in all my edits. Yeah. Never seen it in my life. Now I'm here, so I think I can take a trip soon.
Yes, it's very true. You can pretty much just drive right up there. It's pretty close.
Yeah. My boyfriend has a car, so got to do that.
Oh yeah, you have to. And I think if I'm not mistaken, one of the border, is it New York? Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm terrible at geography.
Something.
I feel like New York.
Yeah, me too.
Half of it's on New York, and the other half is on Canada. But maybe I'm completely.
It's something like that. I don't know anything either. I'm horrible at geography.
Geography is hard.
All day. I can give you a good math problem, though. I can tell you some science stuff, but no geography. But I think I've heard that before.
Okay, another one. Nickelodeon or Disney?
Oh, Nickelodeon.
Oh, breaking my heart.
I know. You love your Disney. I know it's hard. I like SpongeBob too damn much. But if you ask me Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, I have to say Cartoon Network.
That's true. Johnny Bravo. That's the only Cartoon Network show.
Johnny Bravo, man. Oh. Adventure Time is my thing. My whole background is Adventure Time on my computer.
I used to mentor a teenage girl way back a couple years ago, and she loved Adventure Time, so she is the one who put me on. Her name was Kayla. Shout out to Kayla for putting me on to Adventure Time.
Yeah, Kayla. Woo!
And the last question. If you could collaborate with any person or brand or thing, who would it be?
I would like to collaborate with Apple again because I would like to create a program where people get free phones. And I think that there needs to be a more initiative behind everyone having an access to the internet for free and for phones for free.
I love that. I completely agree. I see that a lot with my It's phones are pretty much almost a necessity in today's world, which is
yes.
Yeah, it's true. All right, so we're gonna sign off. Do you want to let the people know where they can find you? I also have included Elise's Instagram, Twitter, and her website in the description of this video. But anyone tuning in, let the people know. Elise, tell them where they can find you.
Of course. It's SWOPES as Swopes on Instagram and Twitter. You can Google me. You can find my website, SWOPES.co, or you could do SWO.PS. Wait, no. SWOP.ES. So the URL is just Swopes, which is dope. I mean, I like URLs. I have 5 URLs, maybe 10 actually. I think I have 10 URLs, but I'm on the internet, so you'll find me on there. But other than that, I've got my podcast every other Wednesday, and then I post on my Instagram every morning with my quotes. So you can look forward to those little snippets, and you can kind of see what I'm going through too, because you can be like, "Dang, she's going through it." But sometimes I don't talk about myself. Some days I'll be honest. It's difficult to think what to write, because some days I don't have anything to say. But I think that's where a lot of my growth in my writing has come from like forcing myself almost to be like, okay, today you're gonna like really push yourself to like speak about how you feel or speak about how you think someone else feels, you know. So it's very helpful.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much
Thank you.
for your time and for all of your gems that you shared with us today. Um, but yeah, I appreciate you
I
a lot.
appreciate you so much. Thank you again for
Of
having me. I
course.
mean, I could not hear more wonderful things about you, and I really feel very blessed to know you. And hopefully, you know, as time goes on with COVID, we can hang out and have some time in New York. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, 100%. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.